It will take just half a minute to live stream on YouTube. Okay, so we are, now it's streaming on YouTube. So we were talking about humus, that humus is this rich, dark, crumbly end product of anything organic that falls on the soil, uh, falls on the ground. And it is there in this very thin layer of roughly 4 to 12 inches. And this is the layer which gets cut the most easily, washed away the most easily, or eroded away the most easily. And how is it helpful for soil fertility? As Sarita said, firstly, it makes soil crumbly and porous, increases water retention, increases water seepage. So actually, unless soil has humus, or unless the soil is porous, will not have rainwater seeping. So all our groundwater recharge also depends on humus availability or soil porosity. So and groundwater is becoming more and more important as all of us need it in cities and in villages. Another very important role which humus plays is it is a long-term storehouse of nutrients. I mean, any nutrients that we give in terms of artificial fertilizers, NPK, whatever, they don't get stored. They are water soluble. They get washed away with every rain. Any rain comes or water flows, uh, they get washed away. Humus attaches uh, important nutrient molecules to itself. It binds them to itself, and therefore, and it's a very complex substance. Complex organic uh, chains, carbon chains, but they attach nutrients to them and keep releasing them slowly. So it's a long term storehouse. It's like it's like sustained fertility. Humus builds sustained long term fertility, which we cannot build unless there is humus. We can't build it. So therefore, it gives stable fertility. Humus rich soil will be fertile for a long time unless humus goes away, washed away. And how will porosity and drainage help plants? I mean, a soil which allows water to pass through and which has air through its pores. There's air and there's water. Both are needed. So how will this be helpful for plants? Yes, like Reshmi says, roots need to breathe. Firstly, they need to breathe, and then they need to drink water. So they have a need for water also, but they also have a need for air. And that's why we sometimes dig and create spaces, and we try making the soil crumbly by digging, by plying or digging, and trying to make air spaces. So it's like roots need both air and water, and therefore porosity matters, and also drainage matters. Drainage means how water can seep to bigger depths. And therefore, only sand is not good, only clay is not good. There's always a mixture is always better. And of course, silt is the third participant with sand and clay. Silt is what generally is brought by rivers. So a mixture of sand, clay, and silt, they together make a good texture to the soil. Added to that is humus. Now, now I'll come to this important thing called soil organic carbon, which Dr. Ratanlal was talking about, or this is called SOC. And one major goal I have today is to convince you all that SOC is one of the most vital indicators of soil fertility. And this is something most people in India, most farmers, gardeners, anybody, we are just not aware. We haven't even heard about it. So soil organic carbon content, SOC, this is the sum total of all carbon compounds that reside in the soil. So it's like humus, plus there's a variety of natural charcoal which gets built by itself. So that plus anything dead, decaying, or living, anything coming from creatures, all the waste, all the dead bodies, so all the decomposing materials. So you can see, I mean, like fallen leaves or even prali, I mean, hay, whatever. All this, the sum total of carbon compounds in the soil coming from organic sources, that's SOC. And the important thing is that we have today, our farms and fields and gardens and soil have very, very little SOC. It's actually less than 0.5%, at most it will be 0.5, 0.6, or sometimes 0.3, 0.4, which is really, really little. It's very little to maintain soil fertility, to make soil healthy. What is needed is 2 to 3%. For good, healthy fertility and growth, 2 to 3% is needed, and it would give good productivity. But since soil SOC can't be built by anything that companies sell, so nobody gives a damn. Nobody bothers. And this, because we have very little SOC, soils are very poor, and the fertility has to be made up with chemicals. It's because it doesn't have fertility, you need to give chemicals. If you had rich fertile cell, chemicals, I mean, chemical fertilizer, I mean, would become unnecessary. They are unnecessary, they are inconsequential, they make no difference. It's only with poor soil which is half dead, which can barely produce anything, then it needs like the way a weak or diseased person needs medicines to keep it living or going. Same is the state of our soils. Here's one report card of a farmer. You can see here, this says Uplabh Jivansh carbon, which is SOC, percentage is 0.45. 0.45, and the agriculture department has said L, low. So they give this report card, and the farmer knows nothing. What do I do with this? With this L? So it's low. There's nothing that you can go and buy in the market which will suddenly improve your SOC. And that's the whole problem. Otherwise, you get NPK and other minerals and other micronutrients. You get solutions and stuff that you can go and purchase, but not SOC. Now, the three actors, or you can call them factors, which actually build soil and soil activity are these three. On one side, this is the rocks or powdered rocks or stones. So it is mineral substances, compounds. On the right side is dead or living organic, mostly dead organic material, wastes, actually, animal and plant wastes. And the third is very, very, very large community of creatures living inside the soil. We can barely see them, actually, and we have no clue how many creatures live inside soil. Actually, soil is, especially topsoil, is a living entity. It's actually full of life, it's thriving with life, and it's that life. So these creatures, very, very tiny, to some are a little bigger, earthworms are bigger, nematodes are a little bigger, mites are a little bigger, we can see them. So these creatures working on both sides. They work on minerals, they work on organic matter. So all three interact. So the quality of a soil is built by all the three working together, all the three present together. And three very, very important determinants are, there are, of course, micronutrients, but then if you bother about soil carbon, soil nitrogen, and soil microbes. Microbes is organisms we cannot see with our eyes. If you bother about these three, rest will be taken care of by themselves. And we don't need to actually supply micronutrients or anything. These three will take care of everything. So now coming to carbon. What builds carbon in the soil? Carbon means carbon compounds, various forms of carbon. And basically, what builds carbon in the soil, which builds humus and which builds SOC, is all this: fallen leaves, grass, uh, like dried crop wastes, especially even crop stubble, which people burn away these days, and even dung has a large amount of carbon. So all waste material coming from plant sources or animal sources, all this is actually basically mostly this is carbon, and which builds SOC, which builds soil organic carbon, and therefore it's extremely precious. When like we say that 2 to 3% is needed in every farm or field or garden, actually tons of this has to go into the soil, get decomposed and get mixed with the soil. Tons and tons of this is needed, and what we do is we throw away all this. We sweep leaves, take them away, we cut grass, throw it away, throw it as waste. Farmers take away hay, and earlier, or okay, even now a lot of it is fed to animals, but this crop stubble is burnt away. So, and okay, in India still farmers are using dung, but this is not the primary thing they are putting in their soil. So basically all the carbon which was meant to go into the soil, go back into the soil, all the biomass is now either thrown or wasted, or just uh, burned or ruined. Nobody sees its value. It seems like useless dead material. In truth, this is the most precious substance which we cannot give otherwise. How will you replace tons of leaves or tons of grass or tons of hay? There's very little that you can. There are a couple of things you can purchase and maybe put, but nothing will build uh, soil carbon the way biomass will. And then there is nitrogen. So natural nitrogen, one good source is, of course, animal urine and animal dung. Animal dung doesn't have too much, but animal urine is rich in nitrogen. Of course, there are some other sources. We'll come to that. But this is like, these are nitrogen rich materials. And actually, the interesting part is, if you have too much carbon in your soil, but little nitrogen, then also your soil, your plants won't be healthy, your soil won't be healthy. But if you have too much nitrogen, which is the case these days, because we pump urea, we pump diammonium phosphate, DAP, and like, okay, or artificial fertilizers come in various forms. So many of them are nitrogenous fertilizers. So we put a whole lot of them. But if you put enough nitrogen, but you don't have sufficient carbon, that will also destroy your fertility. Without carbon, your soil cannot become fertile. That's what I'm going to show you why. So that's why a ratio is needed. This ratio varies from climate to climate. In our climate, it's like the carbon should be 20 to 30 times that of nitrogen. The amount of carbon needed is this much. And coming to microbes and living creatures, a teaspoon of healthy soil contains roughly 1 billion living creatures. 1 billion. It's literally teeming with life. It has so much life we can't even comprehend. I mean, the exact number varies from source to source, but it's like, let's say it is in billions, soil has, and the variety of life is also mind boggling. Nearly 10,000 species living in this little soil. So it's actually alive. Soil is alive. Soil is not same as dirt. Dirt is only the mineral part, the rock dust. That is what we can call as dirt. But the real soil, which actually gives birth to plants, is literally alive with life. And here are some soil creatures, some pictures. Here also in this video, sorry, um, in this video, they have shown some. I'll show you some here. There are plenty. So, I mean, so this person is increasing magnification slowly. So as he changes magnification, different soil life is visible at and many of them. And there's a full ecosystem here. I mean, like there are predators, there are prey, there are some are eating others, some are chasing others, and so on. There's like very complex phenomena happening inside, but all this is soil biology. So actually, for the first time now, humans are understanding soil biology properly. Earlier, it was only about soil chemistry and soil chemistry and soil chemistry, like 100, more than 100 years back. It was like, okay, so which chemicals must be present in the soil? So it was primarily NPK and then tiny amounts of calcium and magnesium and sulfur and zinc and cobalt and so on. So it was like, it was completely driven by chemistry. Humans just looked at chemistry and thought that all these creatures are not inconsequential. They're just there. They're living their lives. They have nothing to do with plants. In fact, many were seen as harmful to plants. But today our view has completely changed. Within like past 2-3 decades, our view has changed. So now we see that roots, around the roots, there is a very large colony of microbes. Uh, and this whole area is called, this whole region is called rhizosphere. So in rhizosphere, the number of microbes is 50 to 100 times that of rest of the soil. So there's a huge crowding of life around plant roots, and it has to have a purpose. Why is it there? They must be doing something. So we'll see what they do. So here's a beautiful picture of a tiny aquarium which a friend has. And one very interesting thing we saw in that aquarium is, so in this aquarium, you can see plants. These are water plants growing in the soil. And you can see roots. And around the roots, you can see bacterial colonies. These orange ones are bacterial colonies. So bacteria are crowding around, making colonies uh, around the roots, the rhizosphere, and we can see it visibly here. So what are they doing? So one is this bacteria, the other is this. What their role, we have only now started understanding. A very large number of fungal threads, fungi, a huge network, a huge network of fungal threads, and they are so thin that they are not visible through the naked eye. They are extremely thin, extremely thin. They are called mycorrhiza. And an interesting thing is, this is the most interesting part. Like we used to think that roots only absorb. They absorb water, they absorb nutrients. Roots are only taking from the soil. No. Today we know that roots are giving out. Do you see these? This is a photo taken from a scientist. Root is excreting out glucose and other nutrients. Why? Uh, to actually feed the fungi and feed the bacteria. Root is actually keeping them with itself. The plant is keeping them with itself to give very, very vital, valuable services. It's like the plant, these are called exudates. The plant gives up to the third of the food it prepares out of photosynthesis, out of so much work. It prepares food, and nearly a third of it is spent around the roots, feeding bacteria and fungi. So it's literally domesticating them or keeping them as pets so that they help the plant. This is a symbiotic relationship developed like very, very long back. The way plants above soil make symbiotic relationship with pollinators and seed dispersal agents. Similarly, below the soil, inside the soil, roots build relationships with bacteria and fungi. So, and here you can see that soil particles, just a sec. So here you can see that soil particles are tied together with the help of these fungal threads. So actually, they play a role in keeping the soil together, making these soil aggregates. जिनको मिट्टी हम हिंदी में ढेलियां बोलते हैं ना, तो ढेलियां बनाने में ये सब मदद करते हैं. They actually bring soil, loose soil particles together, and they increase the root surface area by 2 to 3 times. The fungal threads, they increase the area vastly so that much more water and much more nutrients can be absorbed. So these soil organisms, bacteria, fungi, and other organisms, they are the real farmers. Actually, they dig, they plow, they make the soil porous and crumbly and fertile, and they build fertility. They grow healthy plants. This is a relationship we have understood only now, that they are the farmers. We think we are farming, they are doing the farming. If we destroy them, we destroy much of the fertility of natural implicit fertility of soil. So how are bacteria and fungi keeping soil healthy? We saw their colonies. So like I said before, fungal threads are going all over the place, far away from. So this is a single root hair. Fungal threads will go far away from root hair and bring nutrients uh, from a large distance. They bring water, they bring nutrients, and they also make communication between one plant to another plant possible. So trees and plants actually communicate with each other. Sometimes the mother plant communicates with its children and actually feeds them with nutrients. If you must have noticed that if you cut a tree and leave a stubble, the tree doesn't die. Even if it's unable to make food, it won't die. It will sprout new leaves because other trees around are feeding it, supporting it with the help of this fungal network. It's now called wood wide web, but it's otherwise the name is mycorrhiza. So the fungi increase the surface area and bring nutrients. And fungi were all only seen as disease agents. It's true that a small number do cause disease, and we always thought they are enemies to be defeated. So we have a category of chemicals called fungicides, whose job is to kill fungi. And now we see that 95% of them are great friends of plants. They are helping plants establish themselves, feed them, and there's a vast network inside soil. Uh, and bacteria are crowding around in the rhizosphere, creating a protective sheath, a sort of what would I call it? I mean, I can't remember the word, but it's like a protective cover. And protection against whom? Can you guess? Who are they protecting the root against? Any guesses? While bacteria are living in the soil, and soil is around roots only. I mean, roots are in into the soil. So roots don't need protection from the soil. What would they need protection against? Which bacteria are doing? Bacteria are protecting roots. So these nitrogenous, uh, so Bharti probably means that these bacteria are building, bringing nitrogenous products or nitrogenous compounds to the roots. Definitely they are. They are bringing nitrogenous compounds or making what we call as nitrogen fixation, which means atmospheric nitrogen is converted into some form so that roots can absorb, plants can absorb. But here I'm talking about protection. So protection from whom? So actually, these are friendly bacteria and they protect from pathogens. Pathogens means enemy bacteria, enemy fungi, enemy viruses. Basically, pathogens means anybody who causes disease. So these are friendly bacteria which are have crowded around, and the plant actually calls those, invites those bacteria which are its friends. So it's a symbiotic relationship. So not everybody is allowed to come in. The friends are allowed to come in and crowd around, and they protect against disease. So this is a disease protection system. So plants which have a healthy rhizosphere, they are healthy. They don't need pesticides to protect them from diseases. They already have their allies. They have these uh, bacteria protecting them. This sheath, the cover, and of course, like Bharti said, there are other kinds of bacteria. One of them is this rhizobium bacteria living in root nodules, which fix nitrogen, which means convert nitrogen, atmospheric nitrogen, into such a form so that plants can actually absorb. But it's not only that the bacteria live only in these nodules. There are also other ones living in the soil, which actually fix nitrogen or make other nutrients into such forms which plants can absorb. So they do this job of making things uh, palatable to plants, like digestible to plants. So it's like bacteria are helping dissolve and absorb nutrients, and fungi are helping bring them from far away. So both are giving very valuable services, and bacteria are also protecting against disease. So, so all in all, they are giving great services. And here we have a animation. So it's like it's showing the same thing actually. So here's the plant root. This is the rhizosphere, and it's showing that the root there's a large area root cannot reach. So and so it grows hair, root hair, which are thin, but even root hairs are unable to reach very large regions. So then it takes the help of its friends, which is fungal threads. So we will soon see. Here there is a root tip shown, and there's a teeming colony of bacteria around, which are bringing potassium and phosphate and nitrate and so on to the root. So these bacteria are actually making these nutrients soluble and palatable to the root in the rhizosphere. So there's this sheath around which bacteria are thriving and allowing nutrients to come. And then there is fungal threads. So it will show you fungal threads also. So there is this unreachable area where roots cannot reach. So it has built this symbiotic relationship with mycorrhiza, which is the fungal network. It was known historically, but its job wasn't known. It wasn't known how it functions. So, so here it is how these fungal threads are growing out of, near the roots, but they are growing all over the place. Some of them enter the root cells. They actually enter the root cells, and then they, on the other side, they go to soil particles. Between soil particles, where root cannot go by itself because there's very tiny space. So root cannot go there. So then the fungal threads will now go in between soil particles. So water and nutrients, which is lying in between soil particles, now they have to be reached. So now fungal threads start growing. Pull out water, pull out nutrients from far away and take to the root. So this is the relationship which is so vital for the plant that the plant actually feeds the bacteria and the fungi. It actually keeps them around it, keeps them as friends. So, okay. Is there any question so far? Okay. So I'll proceed. Uh, so here's an old and famous experiment. You can see 1902, where this person, he was a German scientist, Lawrence Hiltner. What he did was he took two plots, and in one of them he killed all microbes. In the soil, all microbes were artificially killed, and in an exactly the same size of plot, same type of plot, microbes were left as such. So in one, microbes were killed, in one, microbes were left, and then a disease causing agent, a pathogen, disease was deliberately added. And you can see what happens. The I mean, these photos are not the original ones. I've just taken them from the net. But the plants, the soil which did not have microbes got all plants diseased, whereas the others which had microbes thrived. So that long back, actually, Hiltner had established that microbes are necessary for plant health. He had established it, but then, and this experiment has been repeated so many times in history even now. So, but knowing this, even then, we forgot this. Soil biology was forgotten, and we did not take microbes seriously, and the exact relationship between microbes and plants was not understood by science. Then there are bigger organisms like earthworms and their casts. So you will be surprised. Earthworms, I mean, look at these numbers. In 1 year, earthworms give 25 tons of nutrient-rich casts, these round balls in an acre, which have 50% more humus, 5 times more nitrogen, 7 times more phosphate, and 11 times more potassium. 25 tons of this earthworms give in a soil which has a healthy earthworm community. Imagine so much of free nutrients, so much of free nutrients, so much of free services, and we destroy them. We destroy them with chemicals because we put chemicals which they cannot tolerate. All chemical fed agriculture has earthworms missing. We all know this. I mean, it needn't even be said that pesticide sprays kill 95% of beneficial insects and other organisms. Only 5% pathogens are killed, harmful ones are killed. Baki 95% beneficial ones are killed, including pollinators. So this is well known. So essentially, what I'm trying to establish is that the health of the soil and soil organic carbon, the health of the soil fertility depends on its microbial community. And this SOC, why SOC is important, soil organic carbon is important, because it feeds the microbial community. Microbial community needs something to eat. Bacteria need something to eat. What will they eat? The biomass that you put in. So you put in dead leaves, decaying leaves, you put in anything, any straw, any organic material, any organic waste, you put kitchen waste, you put anything, bacteria will feed on it. And that's what will keep your soil healthy and your soil fertility going. And that's why soil or organic carbon is an important indicator of your soil fertility. So, see, it's like in nature, there is a perfect balance between growth and decay, between life and death. Whatever grows, however much grows, the amount that grows dies, falls into the soil. Soil is the bridge. Dies, rots, decomposes, decays, builds humus, builds SOC, and all that is, and all the nutrients that were there in the living go to the soil and reabsorbed by fresh growth, and everything, the whole thing is recycled. So soil is the bridge between life and death. And I mean, this cycle goes on. So what has happened in modern civilization is we need more and more and more growth. So if we need more and more and more growth, we need more and more crops, then we have to have more and more decay also. More faster life means faster death also, which is the other part we are not even bothered about. And this, of course, everything in nature is recycled. All nutrients are recycled. So whatever is there in life goes back to soil and is recycled. And it's these micronutrients which make our food tasty and healthy. And why we lack taste today is because we have made our soils impoverished and they don't have sufficient micronutrients, and therefore, and something which I said earlier also, foods today carry nearly a third of nutrition. I mean, this third is a kind of a general figure, but otherwise, nutrient level can be from 10% less to 100% less as compared to a century earlier. So now, after hearing all this, what builds soil fertility and how, now you have to tell me why plowing the land, khet jotna, why won't it be good for the soil? I mean, what kind of damage can it do to the soil? If you have followed my line of argument, then you should be able to answer this question. So Sridevi is saying it is disturbing the microbes. Absolutely. How will it disturb the microbes? So Bharti is saying more chemicals, acid rain, use of pesticide, correct. But I am currently talking about tilling land. How will that disturb? So Sanjay Kumar has said destroys rhizosphere. Yes, very correct. Rhizosphere, think of those like vast network of that vast fungal network. Firstly, that whole thing would be destroyed, would be disrupted. Uh, and like Sridevi is saying, the colony of bacteria that will be disrupted. So first, there is physical disruption. All fungal threads will be apart. But secondly, what else can happen if you plow and leave it open? What else can happen? Think of the soil lying barren, like opened up and bare. So actually, the the thing is, plowing opens the soil to drying. The drying is very bad for the soil. Actually, soil microbes, they require a moist environment to survive. And if the soil dries up, gets baked by the sun, gets caked. So one thing is they die because of dryness. That's why soil should actually never be left barren, open. It should always be covered. I mean, that's one principle of keeping soil fertility. Secondly, erosion by wind, by water, any land which is plowed, and especially think of hill slopes. Whenever they are plowed, a lot of soil gets eroded and mm, goes downstream, flows with water. So there's erosion and, of course, this destruction. And the third thing which happens is actually the soil organic carbon starts getting oxidized. It starts getting sort of mixing with oxygen and starts getting breaking down into carbon dioxide. That's the third thing. So, like two, three ways in which the soil organic carbon gets disturbed and this soil microbes get disturbed is because of loss of moisture getting baked by the sun and also water. Any rain or any flowing water which goes here, I mean, rain mostly will actually take away much of the nutrients and humus and all that. So actually plowing is not good. And this is a very late, recent realization. It's this realization has come only over the past century, particularly in US. They used to have a whole lot of these tractor driven, tractor plowed farms. And in the 1930s, they had this huge um, storms called the Dust Bowl. I mean, if I show you, you can give Google it. The Bowl was terrible. It was like miles high dust storms which covered most of US, starting from the west going towards the east. The whole country filled up with dust, and that's when they realized their mistake. That's when they actually set up a department called soil conservation department and no till. It's called the agriculture of no till, which means no plowing. That became a practice, still not very prevalent, but yeah, a very large number of farms in US, but even across the world. Slowly it's being realized that this deep plowing is actually very harmful. Even if humans have done it for 10,000 years, it doesn't matter. It is not needed. It is not needed. It is harmful. And actually, if we build enough microbes in the soil, they will till the land. They will make your soil porous and uh, airy. You don't need to plow. And actually, many farmers do plowing for weeding, for removing weeds. But actually, once weeds are removed, the hardy ones take over. The hardy ones get a chance, and they take over and they grow back again. So controlling weeds is not simple and doesn't happen by plowing alone. There are other ways weeds can be controlled, but not by plowing. So it's like this no plowing, no till is a new kind of thinking which has come to save soil. So soil structure should be maintained, soil texture should be maintained, the fungal threads should need to be maintained, and therefore soil should not be tilled. That is one primary conclusion of the last century. Now you have to tell me, what would synthetic chemicals do to the soil? I mean, synthetic fertilizers, NPK. What do you think they will do? Any guesses? They are added for soil fertility. But what will they do to the things that we are talking about? We were talking about carbon, nitrogen, and soil microbes, soil creatures. So what do you think they'll do to soil creatures? Nitrogen, so of course, we are adding in NPK, we are adding nitrogen, but what will they do to soil carbon? Any idea? Or soil microbes, let's say. Create chemical imbalance which destroys bacteria and fungi. Yes, so actually, yes, there is a chemical imbalance created. So first is that they destroy microbial diversity. Some bacteria and become very actually extra active. There are a lot of them, a whole lot of bacteria there. So some will become very strong, but many will be destroyed. The pH of the soil, the acidity, alkalinity, that changes. And one important thing is the artificial fertilizers, these chemical fertilizers, reduce soil carbon. SOC is actually reduced. SOC, the bacteria actually uh, start breaking up soil carbon itself. Soil carbon starts getting oxidized. Also, bacteria start breaking it up. They become overactive and start destroying SOC. So, in chemical fed farms, SOC starts getting reduced. That's why we have in our farms now we have SOC less than, like it is like 0.5% and all that. It's much, much less than what is required. Because so one very great damage synthetic chemicals do is reduce soil carbon. Secondly, like if you have natural sources of nitrogen, like nitrogen fixing bacteria, then nitrogen gets added slowly. But if you add urea suddenly increases nitrogen in your soil, and it's soluble, so much of it gets washed away with water, and we see all water bodies filling up with algae or water hyacinth, jalkumbhi, all that. So we see uh, all the water taking away this nitrogen, and of course phosphate and others, all chemical fertilizers are actually washed away to water bodies. So so actually these are also algae are also plants. So plants are growing where they are not needed. So like, okay, excess nitrogen fertilizers, I've already said, bacteria rapidly start degrading SOC, and SOC starts breaking up into carbon dioxide. So actually a soil fed with chemicals gives out carbon dioxide. It releases carbon dioxide in large quantities. So here's also, I mean, here's a comparison uh, another classical experiment by a very famous soil scientist, Albert Howard, 1937-38. So he he took two identical plots. Both soil was firstly soil was removed and identical soil was put in, and then one was fed with compost and one was fed with NPK. So the one which was fed with compost had 10-inch growth, very healthy roots and leaves. It was a tea plant, a tea plot. And in the one which was fed with NPK alone, so the growth was 6 inches, very poor roots and pale leaves. So it's very clear. I mean, these experiments have shown that NPK does not suffice. I mean, chemical fertilizers do not suffice for a plant's need. Then why are we putting them? Why have we put them, and how have we taken yields from them for past 50, 60 years? Here's another experiment. Actually, this is a famous UK experimental station, Rothamsted. So they observed two plots from 1843 to 1975, which is like nearly 132 years. So field which was fed with manure, the nitrogen steadily increased, it tripled. But fields which were fed with urea every year, imagine nitrogen they were putting in the form of urea, still it had less nitrogen because nitrogen would get washed away. So there's no stable fertility. Anything which is fed with manure has stable fertility. But the question is how come we learned chemical agriculture? There's a history to it, which I'm not going into today. But how did chemical agriculture take over our country and rest of the world also? And only for the sake of yields, how did that happen? So here, I mean, the comparison it is between an agriculture where manure and compost is given. So here it absorbs CO2 and absorbs water, and there are a lot of soil organisms. On the right hand side, there is traditional, I mean, which means chemical agriculture. It doesn't absorb much water because this soil gets tight. Water remains on the surface, it gives off CO2, and there is not much soil life. So, I mean, like this is a comparison. But why are fertilizers needed? So, this is the important point. Fertilizers are needed more and more not to increase basic fertility because basic fertility is not there, it's already destroyed. So now you need fertilizer for uh, propping up this dropping fertility. Reducing fertility needs to be somehow improved. Initially, fertilizers, like when they were added in the beginning, they suddenly gave a lot of growth. In the 1950s and 60s, they gave a lot of growth, but slowly the advantages constantly pay. More and more and more and more fertilizers are needed to get the same amount of yield. So basically, inputs are increasing drastically and the output is not increasing, and there are so many other damages done. So, so far, is there any question or comment? I see Neeti and Nishant also there. So welcome, Neeti.
So there is this. Many people believe that without NKP, the world population could not have sustained. That is that true? It has some truth in it.
See, that is the whole point. Uh, Fertility is consistently going down, which means agriculture requires, farms require more and more and more NPK. I mean, the amount of chemical fertilizer is actually increasing, number one. So, which means farm inputs are getting costlier. And because your plants are weak, they are more diseased. So, you need more and more pesticides and fungicides and weedicides. So on one side, farmers have to fight disease. On the other side, they have to artificially prop up fertility. So farm inputs have been increasing across the world. So much more, it's agriculture is getting much more expensive. Hmm. And then, of course, there's like it is done with specialized seeds and irrigation. Everything costs money. So actually, small farmers are just not able to make ends meet. So what is not seen is the free labor they are giving. What is not counted uh, is the income they are taking from cities by working as migrant laborers or working on others farms or working as rickshawalas or autowalas or whatever. It is farmers. These are farmers which are working in cities. Who else is actually working as laborers? It's our farmers. So all this is not seen. Farmers are somehow surviving. It's already not giving profits. See, the impression is that we are getting yields or profits because of chemicals. We are not. They are somehow sustaining and getting frustrated. And in our country, I'm sure in other countries also, a large number of farmers are committing suicide. They are under debt. Where is the profit? How is it sustainable? See, it's a myth. It's a complete myth that chemicals are actually feeding the world and chemicals are giving profits. Chemicals are not even feeding the farmers. A farming family, without putting in so much work, firstly, so much labor, so much risk, and then without earning from elsewhere, they are unable to survive. In any case, there's declining soil fertility, means like in many places have to be abandoned. If the fertility is gone too far down and the plant disease, so I mean, okay, the he's telling us next door. In fact, he sent me a video. Heavy spraying of fertilizer, not fertilizer, sorry, pesticide. Every week, heavy spray of pesticides because there's disease attack or there's fear of disease attack. So it's like farmers are stuck in a very vicious cycle. They have lost risk taking capacity. They must have every crop. If one crop fails, their economy goes all over the place. Their economy crashes. So, and okay, governments are giving subsidies. This fertilizers are subsidized, heavily subsidized because of oil, petroleum. Because oil is cheap so far, so fertilizers are one major input in fertilizer industries is oil. If we don't have any more fossil fuels, where will fertilizers be made from, and who will subsidize them? So it's like this model of agriculture is being sustained artificially somehow. And within 60 years, it's ruined soils, it's ruined nutrition, it's ruined people's health, it is ruining, constantly ruining. And pesticides, they are poisons. We're constantly eating poisons. Why should we? Why should, firstly, the farmer is eating poisons. Before we eat, the farmer eats. The farmer who sprays ingests poisons. It's just that, if, I mean, think of it. We are in old civilization. For 5,000 years, our farmers were organic and fed the world, fed themselves, fed the rest of the society. And within 60 years, the fertility is getting ruined. It's this whole fallacy needs to be challenged and challenged seriously. Of course, there are better models. There are successful models where, I mean, see, there are organic farms of all types, but there are even organic is not properly understood, and organic farms, all practices are not good. For example, this no plowing. No plowing, people don't take to so easily. They don't agree. They think plowing, since our forefathers did it, so we must do like that. And this, there are many practices. I'm coming to them. So there are practices which people can adopt and get at par or actually exceed income from chemical farm. They've already done. There are enough successful models across the world, in our country also. In fact, I mean, that's something, I mean, I have too much for one session, but like there's a very successful model of natural farming going on in Andhra. It's almost like a revolution. Very successful. Like thousands and thousands of farmers have reconverted back to natural farming successfully, profitably. It's possible. It's just that somebody has to do it and show. I mean, see why I'm making this presentation to general audiences, that this word must spread. It must spread. We should all realize, why should we eat poison food? Why should we eat nutrient deficient, tasteless food? As consumers, we should want healthier food. And see, somebody I know who works with farmers in Bihar, very large number of farmers, like thousands of farmers. He says farmers are very clear that okay, chemicals are bad. They are very clear. Chemical agriculture is pathetic. They know it. Their soils are dying. They know it. They know it much more than we do. But the point is, he says, as soon as there's enough consumer demand, that we need healthy food, we need naturally grown food, farmers will grow it. So there should be enough demand for healthy food. On the other side, there should be enough successful models farmers should build. Both should happen simultaneously to bring the switch to a larger degree. The switch is already happening. It's not as if it's like this idea has not gone out. It's happening, but it should happen fast enough. Right? Is there any other question? Because I'm about to come to a successful model of natural farming. I mean, there are many models. I'll just present one. Sure. Any question? Okay, so well, I mean, here I've shown a large number of microbial cultures people produce. They're all good. They're all good to increase microbial activity in the soil. And if soil health is concentrated on, so I'm giving a successful model. This is in Bihar, Purnia, somebody called Patanjali Jha. He has created food forests, very healthy, very rich, and very profitable. So these are the things which are like uh, kept in given attention to: microbial activity, natural nitrogen, carbon. So soil organic matter is built very consciously, which means a lot of firstly, there's sufficient biodiversity maintained, crops are rotated, and multi-cropping is done. Then no tillage is done, like no plowing is done. Then mulch is always there. So the ground is always covered with leaves or any organic matter, but ground is always covered. Soil is never kept bare. So, and then this mulch is sprinkled with dung slurry so that decomposition happens. So animal dung gives all the nitrogenous compounds and microbial activity. Then there is this notion of multi-layered farming. So there are small herbs and shrubs and big trees, all levels, so that sunlight can be is efficiently utilized by plants. So there are like creepers and uh, tubers and all sorts of plants are built in. Legumes are very consciously planted because they build soil nitrogen. Then vetiver or khas grass is used in between because it builds soil carbon. It has a very dense root system, and because of which it's like actually increases microbial activity as well as soil carbon. So it makes other plants very healthy. So vetiver grass is used, and it also gives fodder. That sehjan or moringa is used very well. Sehjan is a wonderful plant for soil health and also human health. So, and there are methods for weed control. Weeds are never pulled out. If at all, they are cut and spread out as mulch. And if ground is completely covered with mulch, the weeds do not grow. Or there are other crops in between, nitrogen fixer crops, they are grown. So there are methods to for weed control which are used. Very poor soils can be regenerated. And now, lastly, I want to come to how giving attention to soil carbon can actually save our world. Firstly, atmospheric carbon dioxide before agriculture was 220 parts per million. Today it's 420, more than double. It's agriculture which has contributed a lot to carbon. I am coming to that. Soil holds 4 times, it can potentially hold 4 times as much carbon or absorb as much carbon dioxide as the atmosphere can. So here's the world carbon balance sheet. You can see for yourself 2,500 gigaton in soil, out of which 1550 is organic carbon. This rest is inorganic carbon. This we are not currently talking about, but this much is organic carbon in the soil. Out of 2,500, 1550 is the organic carbon. And the atmosphere has only 780. So atmosphere has much less than soil already. But soil we can increase far more. We can increase this bank, this sink of carbon. We can increase it much more. And it's in past 10,000 years that atmospheric carbon has increased from 360 gigaton to 780 gigaton. Again, it has doubled. And one of the major contributors is deforestation, yes, but agriculture also. How we have used soil and how we have used land. So the land has emitted 575 gigaton, and which is much more than fossil fuels. We keep talking about only fossil fuel emissions, but land has emitted much more. So it's land which we need to preserve, we need to maintain. And if we build soil carbon, it will bring back fertility, it will bring back health. It's like if we return the soil vitality back, we'll have, I mean, so so I have put in a few things here. I mean, there was a lot that people working with soil can do, but like we throw away these leaves. We just have to leave them there to build soil carbon. This is completely useless, these lawns. Where we cut away grass, it feeds nobody, it feeds no pollinators, it does not build biomass, waste land. I mean, no benefit. Instead, gardens should be thriving with plants. And instead of monoculture, we should have diverse crops. Diverse crops and diverse fields are far healthier, far by far. And as consumers, we should ask that firstly, we should be poison free, the world should be poison. So, this is the last thing with which I want to end. Thank you. That nature is abundant and we have to treat it as sacred. That's the only path left for survival. I mean, humans keep thinking in their arrogance that technology will save us, this will save us, that will save us. Giving back nature's own abundance, allowing nature's abundance will save us. There's no other path left actually today. And the thing is, why I'm going on with this appeal is because farmers have so much land. None of us control forests. That is with forest department. But farmers, ordinary people, farmers, gardeners, uh, we have like we have so much land around us which is barren with dead soil or impoverished soils. So that's all I had to say in today's session. So, I mean, I would love to have your comments. So, any comments or any reactions? Reshmi, Sarita, Rajinder Kumar, Archana, Aishit, Neeti, Om, Sanjay, then the person who's on Vivo.
Mhm. I was thinking we have to reach out to others more, like people who have landed property, schools, hospitals, hotels. They they have these manicured lawns, which are not required at all.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a
Garden.
model which is so entrenched in our mindset that people
Mm-hmm.
are not ready to change. But actually, they are changing across the world. I mean, like if you go to Europe today, they have lot many countries have started changing practices. The
Mm-hmm.
look of lawns has changed. I was
Mm-hmm.
quite pleasantly surprised this time I went to Europe. So Bharati is saying the session has given a great insight today by giving more awareness. Uh, yes, Bharti, my wish, Sanjay is saying important and thought provoking. My wish is that we actually wake up. Humans really don't have much time left. And humanity needs to wake up to its mistakes. And this is a massive mistake we are making. This chemical fed agriculture is destructive in every senses of the word, every senses. And I mean, it's like in my colony also there are gardens. There are trees, there are flowers. So if any disease come, any pest come, the first reaction is spray. Everyone just goes for sprays. Any little problem anywhere, just spray poisons. And I mean, the point which many soil scientists or otherwise scientists have already said quite clearly is that if your plants are healthy, a little bit of pest attack doesn't matter. The plant can take care of that attack. It's like we have come into a mindset. It's the same with humans, no? I mean, like we have to eat antibiotics every time with even every little illness. We bombard our system with drugs. It's the same with plants. Firstly, healthy plants won't get diseased. I mean, that's something Albert Howard had said 100 years back in India. He was a Britisher who came and lived here, and he had research plots in Pusa and in Indore. He developed an Indore method of composting, etc. He was very surprised. He said, "These Indian farmers, they have nothing. They are so poor, but their plants are so healthy." He says our plants in the West keep getting diseased, and these people's plants are so healthy. So simply because Indians were just putting manure. They were never attacked by pests because plants know how to take care of themselves. It's same with healthy humans. And of course, human health depends vitally on nutrition, what we eat. So all this is related. Soil health means healthy plants, and then healthy plants mean healthy animals, including healthy us.